Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Fekrat.
My name is Melody Shadenlu.
And my name is Ayeneh.
Welcome to صدای دانشجو. This episode, we're going to take a lighter-hearted spin on the discussion of mistakes as a pre-med. In the United States, there are certainly general dues of pre-med. For example, many medical schools recommend or really even pseudo-require physician shadowing as a part of their holistic criteria for evaluating would-be medical students. But here we are going to share some of our preconceptions of absolute do-nots during your pre-med career. I have discussing with me Melody and Ida. What do you think about letting your GPA and MCAT slide? So do not let your GPA and MCAT slide. What do we think about that?
I think it's obviously like a
Yeah.
very big.
I guess this list is going from most to least obvious, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's obviously you don't want your MCAT or your GPA score, especially your GPA score, to drop. I think when you're going into college, it's a new experience. It's really easy to get lost and to let it fall really easily. But I think it is important to maintain it as best as possible. But at the same time, like life does happen. It's also important to not beat yourself up over it if it does fall a little bit, because there are ways for you to bounce back. It just might be slightly harder, but it doesn't mean it's like end of the world.
Yeah, it's super common. GPA going into college is lower just because you're not ready. I would say most of the study habits that, from what I can recall, most of the study habits that come to mind from high school, these kids were not super geniuses. Going into college, I don't think that really cuts it. And what I mean by that is you should allow yourself definitely like a feeler time for like, let me feel out how this is going. How can I keep this GPA high? And you still have plenty of time if you totally bomb a first quarter or a semester to recover and end with a really high GPA. Ida, you're nodding your head.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. I think in general, especially starting colleges, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of distractions. You kind of want to be in all places at once. So I think it is easy for that GPA to start, sliding off. But I think it's like what you said, as long as, you're really bouncing back and you're able to like increase that trend and show that, no, I am able to lock in and I am doing this and I got this, then I think then you're good to go.
So that's GPA. GPA and MCAT are the two largely numerical metrics that med schools use to evaluate their applicants. GPA is the longitudinal test, and then the MCAT is the acute test. So bouncing back from a like, let's say like what is the lowest score that we can get on the MCAT? 470 something. Let's say you get as low as possible. You get 0th or 1 percentile on the MCAT. You got everything wrong. That's a story in itself. But you can totally bounce back from a bad MCAT. It's easier, I would say, than a bad GPA because the opportunity costs for that, while still non-ideal if you have to bounce back, better than what's the alternative for a bad GPA? Post-bac, masters, having to do like years of your life away for, what could have been like a gradual, like you're saying, a gradual upward trend. Like you have options for a bad GPA. MCAT I think is a little easier, but I feel like you gotta, the turnaround for decisions is equally as fast relative to GPA. You gotta come up with a plan and stick to it faster than like a gradual, like change of character with GPA. We kind of agree. Which is more important, GPA or MCAT?
I think they're equally weighted.
Yeah, because kind of different.
I think so. I've spoken to doctors and they always say like the first thing is the GPA that they look at, and then it's the MCAT, and then if they see that it's above average, then that's where it's like high enough. Then they'll look into like your application, and I could be so wrong though. I could be wrong, but that's what I've heard.
I've heard that too. I've heard that too at UCSD. So I feel like there is like kind of a general like consensus on like, those two are the important ones to kind of get you through. But then like also like what have you done is also important too. So
honestly, for me, I didn't have a lot of guidance going into my undergrad years. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was figuring it out while I was there. And I go to UCLA and it's a quarter system, and the quarter system is very fast paced. There really is no breaks. It's
10-week classes.
10-week classes, midterm every 2 weeks, every other week. And it's a lot of material as well. But see, I wasn't used to that, and I decided to do 4 classes instead of 3 classes, which wasn't really smart of me to do, like looking back now. And I did fine. I did well. I just know that I could have done better, but I'm also trying to not let it deter me from my path or anything. And I am trying to, like, I've had a lot of growth from that. And I think that's really important. Like the growth that the admissions committee see, I think that plays a really big role than just like one bad grade or one B in like a Gen Chem class or.
A B is not a bad grade, folks. Maybe for us, but I don't think a B is a bad grade.
I was not used to not getting.
Yeah, straight A's. Yeah, a bad grade.
Sorry, sounds bad.
Ida, what do you think about that? I think it's pretty straightforward. Is one major do not of pre-med is your GPA and your MCAT. The reason we say that is because we know, we've spoken to admissions people, it's a screening tool, your GPA and your MCAT. It's the first thing they look at. Why? So that they can vet out applicants quickly, because they get so many, and if you're not in like a certain quartile range with GPA and MCAT, they get to just screen you out and be like, okay, one less application I have to read, and they toss it, because to them at that point you literally are just a number.
Yeah.
Kind of discouraging, but also encouraging that you can change that, something that you can change about your application.
Yeah, no, I definitely think like just knowing that there are options available, you can change it. And like you said, yeah, there are screenings, and I think looking at what schools you want to get into, look at their averages, look at what what is like their average MCAT score that they're bringing in, what is their average GPA? Are you there? If you're not, then like you have to, take action and reconsider what you're doing and, try to like get that GPA or that MCAT up if that's like your dream school.
That goes into my next. Do not, as a pre-med, apply too narrow. So too narrow, I would call pretty much what you're saying, applying too far outside quartile ranges or applying to like a very specific subtype of school. You can stretch that in any way you want. If you are only applying to super top heavy schools, if you are, for some reason, like you don't feel confident enough in yourself and you're applying to schools that are way below your stat range, that's why there's that reach, target, and safety, right? And how to divvy that up could make or break your application cycle. We pretty much agree on that one, right? Or anything to add to that?
I agree, and I also think that it's important to apply when you think that your application is as strong as it can be. I think a lot of people, I think we've talked about this in a previous episode, but people they think they have a timeline for themselves. So it's like, I'm not going to take a gap year, I'm going to apply right now, but maybe their application could be a lot stronger if they took that gap year.
I guess I should add to that. Applying too early could be like a do not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, for sure.
So let's go to this one. This is a little more salacious. Shopping for activities. So we all know that person who's kind of like the gunner type and is trying to get into the most competitive this and that, the cancer research group, and etc. What do we think about that? So shopping for activities, in my opinion, is basically, look, if you happen to get into something really prestigious, that's really awesome. Do you care about what you're doing, or is it just a name and numbers to you? Like it's just something you're going to put on your resume. It comes from within. What do we think about that?
I think shopping for activities is something that if you do, most schools can tell. Because when you put your app together and they're just looking down at your activities, they're like, okay, well, they're doing this, they're over there. At the same time, they're doing this, all of these different activities. There isn't a common theme. I feel like that's where that might not be in your benefit.
I don't know if I would theme an application. I think a lack of a theme is still okay if you're doing things that matter to you.
Right,
It's
yeah.
all about how you write it.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. Do you guys think it's beneficial to have, like, for example, like I really want to go into oncology. So do you think it's better for me to have like all of my, I don't know what you guys heard, like everything related to that, or to show that I did explore other options? I did do like look into pediatrics,
that
maybe
one.
plastics.
But there's two different schools of thought. So in general, that your application has a theme to it. So you're the oncology girl to the admissions committee, and that's how they refer to you to easily reference. Or it's that you're a generally well-rounded applicant, and maybe you do things that are kind of like an X Factor type activity. I think it should really be a mix of both. You're naturally going to do what you're interested in, right? And if that happens to be, your whole app, basically what I'm saying is live your life. live your life and be a smart person, which you are, so it should be easy for you. Live your life and then apply to medical school and watch the acceptances roll in, because, she's a person, they're going to be relieved to see someone who can write authentically about authentic activities that they've done. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into what you were asking earlier. I think it's important that you choose activities that maybe they're not the most prestigious, but like they align with your values and goals the most. And then being able, because those are more meaningful, you can write about more meaningful experiences rather than kind of just like checking something off,
No
off the
checklist.
list.
No
The checklist. No checklist.
Yeah.
However, there is one item that I would consider to be like necessary. It's a type of extracurricular I think is necessary. We talked about this.
Shadowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
People that don't shadow, I think you're running the risk of, well, we call it crashing out. You're running the risk of basically crashing out, or maybe just like getting depressed, like in med school, because you realize I don't actually want to do this. Mm-hmm. Imagine a world where you do not shadow. You did not shadow. How do you, and you don't know what a doctor does in their day to day. How do you make that decision? And at the same time, how do med schools justify? Maybe if you work really closely with a doctor, like you're like a med assistant and your first assist, like I've heard of some clinics doing that.
Like scribing, for example.
Yeah, scribing. I could see that being like justified, but for schools that admit people with zero shadowing, I think that's it's risky. It's risky from an admission standpoint. You have something to say?
Yeah, I agree. But I think like being a medical assistant and being a medical scribe is different from shadowing. I think because you're focusing on one specialty, one aspect of the healthcare field, you're not really looking into the different aspects. Like surgery, for instance, is so different than working at a pediatric office. It's very, very different.
And then how otherwise do you get into to watch surgery? Like you're a surgeon, you're like a scrub tech or something like that?
I had the opportunity to shadow a thoracic surgeon down at Irvine, but
other than shadowing, other than shadowing, how would you like get into the OR to like tell that that's what you want to do? You know what I mean?
I think it's very difficult because they have strict policies, but honestly, like shadowing, like cold emailing surgeons and doctors, I think that is honestly like the best thing you can do to get into the OR to shadow, because they have strict policies. Like I don't blame them.
And what's nice is that like if you're at a university hospital and you meet and you get to know one doctor, now you know 20, because they have their whole contact list that's like, oh yeah, we'll just like pass this kid around to all the different like specialties. And it's so what I mean to say is like once you're in, you're in. And that's kind of an interesting thing about like medicine in general. I feel like you kind of have to be indoctrinated into it. Like you have to be like chosen by somebody. I think that's reflected in letters of recommendation. That's my next thing is do not neglect your letter writers. Are we ready to move on from shadowing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So letter writers, I think that this, and I've heard this echoed online, I think this makes a difference. If you have like meaningful letters versus like just fluff letters, like this one professor that like I didn't really talk to at all, or something like that, I think it makes a huge difference. Especially letters with superlatives. The best, the greatest, in this long, you know, the most this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely, those help a lot. And also, like, what activities have you been doing, like, you know, for a long time? Like, it's kind of expected that, you know, if you're putting like thousands of hours in for like one activity, is there someone in there that you can get a letter rec from? Because they're gonna most likely want to see a letter from like someone in that. Yeah, exactly. Like, are you in a lab? They want to see one from the PI. Also, one thing, do not wait until like you're about to apply to ask for a letter rec. Ask like at least like 6 months in advance, I think, because they are very busy. And when, you know, you need that letter rec by like 2 months, like, you know, you're going to submit your app and you need that within like 2 months, and like that's not enough time for some of them, right? Because they're like really busy people. So, and I think it's just respectful to like give them that time.
And they receive a lot.
Yeah, they receive a lot. So if you want them to kind of, you know, spend some time on it. So I feel like, yeah, ask early.
I once had a professor give me like an itinerary of things that I needed to do to get, so I asked for a letter after having known her for years, and then she still gives me like this itinerary of things to do, like basically like send a box of chocolates, like draft it, like let us know way in advance, and all this stuff, like send thank you letters to my office and things like that. And I just thought that it was like a cordiality paper of like how to be nice, you know. Anyways, neglecting your letters, I think it could make or break your app. It's one of those things that if you neglect your letters, it's like a chunk of your app missing. I'm looking for, like I'm picturing, I'm the admissions officer. I'm looking for, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm looking for prestigious names like chief of this, professor of this, and I'm looking to see superlatives. This is the best ever, you know, did this, was amazing. And if it's your PI, I think that that's like extra points, because they're going to talk about, you know, exactly what you did, how you contributed to their team. And yeah, I think that that's really good. Anything evidence-based, evidence numbers on your app, not putting numbers on your app could be another thing that could hurt you. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? What I mean is, like, on clubs, we raised $500 in this quarter, or we saved the veteran community this much money through these activities, and we charted it all. And so, and that's another thing. Keep track of if you're doing clubs and raising money, keep track of that stuff. Keep track of your hours. Yeah, on everything. Even if it's just ballpark range, like, you know, writing down at the beginning of the quarter, I'm planning on doing this many hours of this. Because do I remember how many hours a week I was doing of tutoring 4 or 5 years ago? Oh, no, I don't. I do not. So that's another good one. Anything else about letters?
I think that's it. Yeah, pretty much.
So what do you think about overcommitting? What do you think about spreading yourself too thin?
I tend to do that a lot. At least I used to. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to, especially now that I'm focusing more on my MCAT, I'm trying to like figure out what my priorities are, what I want to stick with, and then everything else kind of just set down for a little bit until then. I think it's like being a pre-med, it's tough. You have to do so much research, volunteering, shadowing.
When you see that
work.
list,
it's intimidating.
Like in high school, you just got into your favorite university, you're so excited, and then you see how to be pre-med, and you're like, huh, like I'm supposed to do all this at the same time?
I think a big reason as well that I often overcommit or maybe spread myself too thin is because I'm worried I'm not doing enough. Like I'm worried that I should be doing more. If I'm lacking in one area of my application, like I need to bring that back up. I need to do more to fill that void. This right now, for example, with the MCAT, with studying for the MCAT, I kind of have to stop a few things. I kind of have to pause my volunteering for a little bit, and that itself, like that, I feel like there's a big void. So it's really easy to overcommit, I think. But I think it's also important to remember that you want to put your best. You want to give your 100% to all the things that you're dedicating yourself to.
Pre-med will be like the tip top of your capacity for quite a while, decades, because you want to be a doctor. And so finding that balance, let that be like your year 1, year 2 focus, is find the balance of how hard can you work and still be sane. You know, I think that's good advice.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, like I think my first quarter at UCSD, I was a transfer student, so I went from semester to quarter, also online to in person, like all at once.
COVID.
So yeah, so I did like 2 summer courses, and then I did like all of these different things, and I was like, wait, like I had like a breakdown. But sometimes you need a breakdown to kind of break through, right?
Yeah.
So like I think that experience taught me a lot, and like I was able to grow from it. So just make sure you're not spreading yourself too thin. It will catch up to you, and you'll end up like, you know, not be able to like put your best foot forward in like certain activities that you really care about.
Yeah, better to realize it in a comfortable setting than not, and think about it like gradually increase the amount of stuff that you want to do. But yeah, I second that. My first and only panic attack was during COVID, during those online classes where it just swamped with work, no reprieve, and yeah, it just hit me full force. I wish that I had told myself exactly that earlier on. The last do not of pre-med is, and we touched on this a little bit, don't peer reference too much. At the end of the day, you may be applying in the same cycle as your best buddies, but they are not your competition. I go back and forth on this one with people, but I don't believe that they are necessarily your competition. They are people that are applying to the same schools maybe, but there are multiple spots at these schools. Like you could both get into the same school. I think we should maybe be trying to uplift people, and in place of peer reference, do not peer reference to an extreme, but in place of that, what do you like about other people? What do you envy? Don't embrace that enviousness, but instead, how can I compare myself to improve myself to get that thing that I want, or etc. You know what I mean?
I agree. I also think that everyone is on their own path, and I think that was the biggest thing I had to remember, especially my sophomore to senior years. That was the biggest thing. Like, everyone is on their own path. Even if you're doing the same thing, even if you have very parallel experiences, what makes you stand out is how you talk about those experiences. What's meaningful to you is probably different than your friend or your peer. So I think that's what I've been telling myself, so I don't compare myself to others. And at the end of the day, everyone and everything will be okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's really, I personally think there's nothing that really comes from it when you compare yourself to other people. I always try to think, well, what can I do better for myself? Like, what do I want to personally improve on? Not as a reflection of what I see other people have and that I'm lacking, but of just something that, like, intrinsically that I feel like I want to do and I need to do. And I feel like when you, like, go towards that direction and, like, fulfill that, there's, like, I feel like it's just
healthy.
I feel like it's healthier to, like, intrinsically, like, intrinsically.
I was thinking the other way around.
Yeah, I figured. But no, I think it's healthier to, like, listen and really, why am I doing the things I'm doing? Like, where is my passion? Like, what are the things I want to do? And, like, following that, I feel like will end up making you a happy person during college and during pre-med journey and everything like that. So, yeah.
Oh, happiness intrinsically motivated.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching this episode of Sadai Dانشجو. That's all we have for you, and see you next time. Bye-bye.